today with Conversations with Craig. I'm Craig DeRoche, the president and CEO of the Family Policy Alliance based in Colorado Springs. And we had just have an amazing guest, one of the people that my wife and I follow because he is a unique and special leader in the House of Representatives. Representative Jim Banks served from 2010 to 2016 in the Indiana House. He's a veteran. He defended our country overseas. He's been serving in Congress since 2016. He is the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative caucus in the House of Representatives. And he is the one that is protecting families, whether it was in the Indiana legislature, protecting life and families. He's doing the same thing in the House of Representatives. And we can't take that for granted. We are very grateful. You can't assume that just because someone's a Republican or conservative, that they're standing up for us. And Jim is a fighter. And it's with a great honor and a privilege to welcome him to the show. So Jim, Congressman Banks, thank you for being with us today.
Hey, Craig, great to be with you. Thank you to Family Policy Alliance. I'm biased, but I'm a big fan of the Statesman Academy as an alum and for a lot of other reasons. I appreciate greatly what all of you do, especially Indiana Family Institute. I've had a long relationship with IFI over the last 20 years, and what they do in my home state is tremendous. So honored to be with all of you today.
Thank you, and it's an honor to be with you. And we love our friends in Indiana as well. They're really breaking a lot of ground for families and education in particular. So today I want to just jump right into it. You're one of the leaders that is being talked about to be the whip, the Republican whip after this election. That's an exciting thing, and I could see why your colleagues have pushed you right to the front of the consideration there. And the question is, there's a lot of talk about the House going back to Republican control after this election. And a lot of the odds makers, both from the right and the left, saying that that's almost a done deal. So what type of things do you see coming down the pike if you're in that position in the majority or in the minority? What do you see happening in the 2023 Congress for Republicans?
Well, as you know, we have 3 weeks to go until the historic midterm election. I have a lot of optimism that Republicans will win the majority in the House. The Senate is a different situation. I believe we will have a Senate Republican majority too, but it's going to be very slim if that's the case. So then the question becomes, what do we do with it? Republicans rolled out a commitment to America, which was a framework. It was an agenda of what we will fight for if we get the majority. Craig, I don't need to tell you, though, that what I hear from a lot of my supporters, and as I travel my district and the country, what I hear from the voters is we've seen this movie before. We've given you the majority before. We've given you the White House. We've given you the opportunity to lead and to move agendas forward in the past, and Republicans failed to live up to the commitments that they've made. So this is where I think leadership matters. The last term, I've chaired the largest caucus on Capitol Hill. The Republican Study Committee happens to be the conservative caucus of House members, 163 of us who are part of that caucus. And we've spent the last couple of years talking about what do conservatives stand for in this unique moment, coming out of the Trump administration, losing the majority in the House and the Senate after the 2020 election, losing the White House. What do Republicans stand for? What do we fight for? And I really do believe it is a new Republican Party, a new conservative movement, where we recognize more than ever before that our culture is under attack, our pro-family values are under attack in ways that we've never seen before. And when we get the majority, and this is the reason that I'm putting myself out there and angling to be in a position of leadership in the new Congress, I want to make sure that we keep those pro-American, pro-family, our American cultural issues at the forefront of any agenda that Republicans fight for when we get the majority back. Now, we know there will still be not just a Democrat in the White House, but Joe Biden, a very left-wing Democrat, is controlled by the socialist left that control the Democrat Party today. So we know that Joe Biden is still going to be in the White House, but we have a moral duty when we get the majority back to fight for our values, to pass bill after bill after bill out of the House. Even if it isn't signed into law by the president, we have to fight for that. And we have to fight for accountability, investigations, and oversight of the administration as well over the next couple of years. And I want to be at the forefront of that. That's why I'm angling for a position of leadership when we get back to the House majority after this election.
Well, the next thing I'm going to say, and this isn't a question, and I don't even want you to answer this because I know you're focused on your own race, you're focused on serving the representatives there, you're focused on your service to the conference and trying to win a majority. But for those of us out here that are advocates, that pour our time and talent and treasure into this, it's very frustrating to see Republicans thinking that other people considered for leadership would consider voting for same-sex marriage and other things. And those people are on the ballot too as potential leaders after the election. And so for those of you that are joining us, that are in our audience, I want you to stay tuned here at Family Policy Alliance. We want you to share this. We want you to comment with folks on social media, because we want to make sure that we have good leaders that are going to protect our children, going to protect parents' rights, going to protect the sanctity of life, religious liberty, and families. And Congressman Banks is one of the good ones. He's with us. He just said the stuff that he's been doing with the Republican Study Committee and the other activities. You did one thing in particular, the Family Policy Initiative, and you talked a little bit about that just now, but could you unpack that, what you would hope to be able to do in a majority, in a more friendly environment with policies in the new year?
Yeah, Republican Study Committee rolled this out. I was very proud of it. We've done a lot of things over the last couple of years, but this family policy agenda that we put forward as a Republican Study Committee is something that's at the top of my list of initiatives that we've championed, that I'm most proud of under my leadership at RSC. And it's a framework, Craig, of 10 areas where we think that the government, where society, a whole of society, all of government approach can better promote families. Last year, you saw, especially in the election of Virginia, Republicans are without a doubt we're the pro-parent party, the party that believes that, as conservatives Republicans, that parents should be in control of their kids' education, not the education cartels that run the schools, who put our kids last over the interest over their own interests. And try to rid the parents of having any control in our schools. So we're the pro-parent and pro-kid party when it comes to our schools. I want the Republican Party and the conservative mantle to continue more than ever before to be the pro-family party. And that's the family policy agenda that we put forward, which got a lot of attention about 6 or 7 weeks ago when we rolled it out. All of my colleagues in the RSC and even more broadly than that, they read it, they support it. This is an area where I find that we have more consensus among Republicans in the House who recognize that the cultural attacks on our kids and what the government is doing to disincentivize families is something that's an area that Republicans can focus on and control when we get back to majority too.
Well, that shows a lot of wisdom in your leadership, Jim. And that's why we like being able to talk to you and get updates from you, because it's not just support in the Republican Party. We've seen the polling on this. The majority of the Democratic Party don't want boys going into the girls' locker rooms or taking their spot on the podium, whether it's in a junior high school competition or whether it's in a college national championship. And moms in particular, suburban moms are awakening, and people are coming back on this to the traditional family values. And I just want to say God bless you for your continued work and your persistence in that, because people like to call you a lot of names. They like to try to shut you down. You've been kicked off Twitter for a couple times this year, I know, but you're a warrior. You're a happy warrior, though, and you're trying to bring forward positive solutions. And one of the areas that I know you're going to be involved in, you already are, is in the area of life. Congressman Banks is with us. We want you to share this, by the way. We want you to comment because a lot's going on. We're talking to a guy who's on his way up in the House of Representatives, could be the third most powerful Republican in a majority after this election. And we know, Congressman Banks, that you've got some stuff you want to talk about with protecting the lives of our most vulnerable, those that have not been born yet. So tell us what you think Congress should be doing differently than the states in that debate.
Well, we believe at Republican Study Committee that Congress has a very important role to play in passing pro-life legislation. And we're not going to back off of that. But it has been admittedly, it has been a debate on Capitol Hill amongst conservatives, and some conservatives have argued that the Dobbs decision means that we should just allow the states to handle this. I can tell you, at Republican Study Committee, we oppose that viewpoint, and And we're going to continue to push as conservatives the new Republican majority in the next Congress to pass important pro-life legislation. I support the heartbeat bill personally. Many of my colleagues do as well. Life at Conception Act, other pro-life bills. Lindsey Graham rolled out the 15-week bill in the Senate. There are a lot of proposals that have been on the table, but what's important to recognize is that this will be a true test of leadership when we get the majority back to build consensus around this issue and fulfill the pro-life mantle that the Republican Party holds at this important time in American history with Roe being struck down. We still have a lot of work to do. I know the current Republican whip, Steve Scalise, who's likely to become the Republican majority leader, is committed to passing a Born Alive Infant Protection Act. That'll be one of the first things that he says that he, as majority leader, will put on the floor for a vote. That's good, Craig. I'm glad that we're doing that, but I hope then that leads to more along the way. I mean, if we want to show the difference between the radical left and Republicans in Congress today, let's follow up the Born Alive bill with a bill that would ban abortions nationally at the federal level, abortions based on sex selection abnormalities. That's a good follow-up to that. And then build our way up to passing a heartbeat bill or something even more significant. So those are conversations that I have been leading as the Conservative Caucus chairman at the RSC and pulling members together to talk about strategy, to talk about the way forward here. But this is where leadership is really going to matter in the next Congress.
It does matter. Leadership matters. And that's why we're so grateful for your leadership, because you see that. There are some, listen, I spent a decade working in justice reform, and I was shocked when President Trump led and passed the most significant justice reform in 40 years. 40 years. He stepped up and he did that. And the people that tried to tank that reform was actually the left and the ACLUs of the world, because they were just playing political games rather than trying to help the couple thousand people in the federal system that were grossly over sentenced, and it was an injustice the president recognized. And we see that people in the life debate, that they would say, well, we'll wait another 40 years until we get a perfect bill. Well, that could be 62 million lives lost later. I just wanted to personally thank you on behalf of Family Policy Alliance and our groups to say that you're going to keep on doing everything you can. It's this, and it's not you're not making perfect the enemy of what is possible, and you're to be commended for that. And Congressman Banks is with us. We want you to share this with your friends. I just have two more questions. The last one's a fun one. I'll put it in the back of your head. We like to ask people for why they should be encouraged today, but just quickly, help not harm. This is an evolving thing. Most people would have thought that it couldn't be even possible that in our country, experimentation on children, that we don't let them smoke cigarettes, we don't let them get tattoos. I saw that in New York, a parent was arrested for getting a tattoo on their 10-year-old properly for child abuse. But if that same parent was putting them on sex blocking hormones or a genital mutilation surgery, the state of New York and others would pay for it. Our country's gone mad a little bit, and you've led the way there too. Tell us what you're doing with trying to protect our children, allowing them to grow up and have a childhood before they can make decisions about what type of sexual activity they want to be involved in as an adult.
Yeah, this is such a common sense bill, and FPA has been on the front lines of advocating for this legislation at the state level, which is where we pulled ideas from to write the federal version of this bill. By the way, my friend Tom Cotton introduced this legislation in the Senate. So it's been introduced in the House and the Senate, not going anywhere with Democrat majorities in either chamber. But this is the type of bill that I hope we advance when we get back to the majority. When I explain this to even my friends in the middle or on the left, that we should hold these doctors and healthcare providers accountable who perform these surgeries or who are giving hormone blockers to kids. By the way, the majority of these kids who have these surgeries or go through these transitions later regret it when they become an adult. That's the underline that. That's the bottom line. So when they do regret it, giving them a cause of action and a legal avenue to hold those doctors accountable for performing these quack surgeries on these kids that's what the bill does. When I explain that to parents, whether they're in the middle, on the left or the right, they fully support it because it's common sense. So that's what the bill does. You all have been instrumental in helping to advocate for this. I appreciate that leadership. And what you said a little bit ago, Craig, I want to go back to it. I mean, this is good public policy. This is important because the radical left is pushing this agenda on our kids in a way that, such a fierce such an aggressive way that we've never seen before. But this is good politics too, and that's something to remember, that the American people support policies like this to protect our kids. And that's why when we talk about it and lean into these issues, as Republicans, I've found that Republicans over the last 4 or 5 years, they've shied away from these cultural issues, but not anymore. That's the new Republican Party understands that we need to lean into the culture fight, the major cultural issues that affect our kids like this one, to protect our kids. And it turns out it's good politics too.
Well, that's the old saying, isn't it? Good policy makes for good politics. Bad policy makes for bad politics. It always sorts itself out. And here you are at the front lines. Imagine that, protecting children, allowing them to have a childhood, to make mistakes that don't cost them for the rest of their life. And learning lessons is actually something you're going to have to fight for. But we're hoping and praying that's a majority. I'm going to ask you the last question, which we like to end on, is encouragement. Should we be encouraged? A lot of folks watching this in social media, all of our channels out there. As you know, the FPCs, we have 40 state organizations, more than 1 million followers, 40,000 churches. They all push these things out, and we share them in our audiences. And there's a lot for the left is trying to, they're trying to suppress our votes. They're trying to suppress our enthusiasm. But give us some reasons why you're encouraged today, a couple of weeks before this election.
Well, first of all, I was with Mike Pence 2 nights ago, and I've reminded him of this a couple of times. It was around 2003 or 2004. He was the first politician that I ever heard talk about striking down Roe versus Wade and sending it to the ash heaps of history. It was a line that I remember him saying over and over again. 20 years ago, Craig, he would say things like that. And at that point, people thought he was a little out there talking about striking down Roe v. Wade. And guess what? It just happened. It happened on our watch. It happened because of all of you who have built this movement, who helped elect the most pro-life president that we've ever had, who nominated 3 pro-life justices, who were responsible for this important decision, the Dobbs decision. So how can we not be encouraged? How can we not be excited about this moment that we're living in? The left is so far to the crazy, wacky, radical left that it's never been easier for us to talk about who we are and what we stand for versus who they are, what they stand for. Their policies that have caused the big challenges that are facing America today. And we have the solutions. It's never been easier to communicate those solutions and talk about how we know they will work. So 3 weeks to Election Day, a lot to be encouraged by. And I think Election Day is going to be the exclamation mark on that encouragement.
Well, from your lips to heaven's door and back, brother, we hope that it's going to be a wonderful election. We want to remind everybody to vote. That is your civic duty. That is what we're called to do. If you want to have a country for, of, and by us, we have to participate. And it's just been an absolute privilege to have you. Congressman Banks, thank you, thank you, thank you. We will talk again real soon. I know it'll be on the other side of the election. Know that we'll be working, we'll be praying, and our thoughts will be with you. And thank you again. And for our audience here, we want you to share this video. We want you to like it. We want you to participate in this discussion, because winning the majority doesn't mean much if you don't do anything with it. And in Congressman Banks, he's just one of many. But there are folks that will be in the way, whether they're on the Democratic side of the aisle or in the Republican conference. And we need to stand with our pro-family, pro-life, pro-religious liberty leaders in Washington, D.C. It's a privilege to have them there, but we want to support them. So we encourage you to look into doing that as well. Thank you for being with us, and we will talk to you all soon.